You can't be serious, Dad, I exclaimed, my voice cracking with emotion, as I stared at him across his sleek glass desk, my heart pounding against my ribs. My father leaned back in his ergonomic chair, cool and collected as always, and released a measured breath that seemed to dismiss my very presence. This is not up for discussion, Alexandra, he said firmly, setting his smartphone down on the desk with a decisive click that felt like the period at the end of a rejection letter. My hands balled into tight fists at my sides, nails digging into my palms, but I stood my ground, drawing strength from my building indignation. So that's really it? I challenged, my words cutting through the air like a knife. You'd rather hand everything over to Nathan, someone who barely understands what we do, than let me prove what I'm capable of, all because I'm a woman in a man's world? He didn't even blink, his face a mask of patriarchal certainty. The legal department is for your brother to lead, Alexandra, he stated with unwavering conviction. You've excelled in your education, and you'll make a fine corporate attorney somewhere with a better work-life balance. But this position is not for you. My name is Alexandra Quinn. I'm 29 years old, a Stanford Law graduate, who finished top of my class, and the daughter of Victor Quinn, the distinguished legal director at Quantum Tech, one of the most powerful tech companies in Silicon Valley. Every moment of my life has been dedicated to proving my worth, acing exams, winning debates against all challengers, publishing papers on digital privacy law, all so I could follow my father's path and make a difference. But standing there in his modernist office, surrounded by gleaming glass and steel instead of the warmth of understanding, I felt the floor disappear beneath me. The crushing realization washed over me. It didn't matter how brilliant my legal strategies were, or how deeply I understood the intersection of technology and law. To him, I would always be just his daughter, a woman who should find a comfortable corner office somewhere and stay out of the complex corporate battles. I locked eyes with him, drawing myself up to my full height, my voice finding new strength in my conviction. Nathan doesn't care about the legal implications of what we do here, Dad. He's careless with details and reckless with precedent. He barely made it through a second-tier law school, and he has absolutely no understanding of digital privacy law or the ethical challenges we're facing. You know that as well as I do. I've seen his work. My father sighed heavily, massaging his temple as though my evidence-based argument was nothing but a childish complaint. Nathan will learn the ropes. He's my son, Alexandra. It's his place to take over the legal department at Quantum Tech. And you, he hesitated, his tone softening fractionally. You have other opportunities, paths that don't involve the constant pressure of standing between a tech giant and regulatory scrutiny. I'm trying to protect you from what I know is coming. I couldn't contain the sharp, bitter laugh that escaped my lips, echoing against the minimalist walls. Protecting me? I challenged, shaking my head in disbelief, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. You're not protecting me, Dad. You're holding me back from the very challenges I've trained for. I've earned this position. I've worked harder than anyone in this building, including Nathan. And deep down, you know it's true, but you won't even give me the chance, because you're too entrenched in outdated thinking to recognize what I bring to the table. His expression hardened like concrete setting, his jaw tightening visibly, and I recognized I'd pushed past the invisible boundary of his tolerance. That's quite enough, Alexandra, he snapped, his voice cutting like steel. This discussion is terminated. I stormed out of his office, my designer heels clicking furiously against the polished concrete floors of our family's modern mansion. The sound echoed my anger, each step punctuating my rage like exclamation points in a heated argument. My mother was in the sunroom, carefully arranging a minimalist Ikebana display. She looked up as I passed, her elegant face showing concern beneath her perfectly maintained composure. Alexandra, she said with gentle urgency. What happened in there? I could hear the tension from down the hall. I stopped abruptly, turning to face her, my chest tight with a volatile mix of frustration and desperate need for understanding. He won't let me lead the new digital privacy division, I blurted out, my voice cracking with emotion. He's handing everything over to Nathan, who can barely format a legal brief properly, and he actually expects me to smile and congratulate everyone. She sighed deeply, her hands hovering over the flower arrangement, fingers trembling slightly before she set down her scissors with deliberate care. Your father. He has certain perspectives, she said, choosing her words, with the caution of someone who'd navigated these waters for decades. But maybe it's wiser not to challenge him directly on this, darling. He believes he's doing what's best for everyone. I stared at her, feeling as though I'd been slapped. My own mother, a woman, who'd once been a promising attorney herself before giving it all up. Doing what's best? I repeated, my voice rising with incredulity. Mom, he's throwing away all my years of education and experience because I don't fit his idea of what a legal director should look like. I'm his daughter, not his equal. How can you, of all people, stand there and defend that outdated mindset? She lowered her gaze, and I saw the weight of decades of compromise etched into the fine lines around her eyes. This woman had once argued cases before giving it all up for family. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I just can't bear to see you hurt, Alexandra, she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of her own unspoken regrets. Sometimes accepting certain realities is less painful than fighting battles you can't win in a system that wasn't built for you. Her words hung in the air between us like a fog, and I felt a cold clarity wash over me. In that moment, I understood with devastating certainty that I stood completely alone in this fight. That night, as I lay in my king-sized bed staring at the recessed lighting in my ceiling, the crushing weight of my father's dismissal pressed down on me like a physical force. My mind raced through everything I'd sacrificed to reach this point. Countless late nights, analyzing emerging privacy law, heated debates at Stanford Law Review meetings, the social life I'd abandoned to master the digital forensics. That would set me apart. And for what? To be told I didn't belong in the room where decisions were made, that my highest calling was to marry well and produce the next generation of Quinn lawyers. My stomach twisted with disgust at the thought, and I felt physically ill at the injustice of it all. The next morning, I was methodically organizing my laptop, tablet, and essential devices into my carry-on when the door to my bedroom slid open with a soft electronic hum. My mother stood in the doorway, her elegant face drained of color, eyes wide with confusion. Alexandra, what on earth are you doing? She asked, her voice trembling with barely contained worry. Before I could respond, my father appeared behind her, his imposing figure filling the doorway, his expression a storm of irritation and disbelief. What is the meaning of this? He demanded, striding into my room uninvited. Where exactly do you think you're going at this hour? Nathan arrived last, leaning against the doorframe with studied casualness, still wearing his designer silk robe, his hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. Planning a spontaneous digital detox retreat, sis? He asked with a smug half smile that made my blood boil. I snapped my laptop shut with a decisive click and stood up straight, squaring my shoulders as I faced my family, feeling my heart hammering against my ribs, but refusing to let them see my uncertainty. I'm leaving, I stated with deliberate simplicity, my voice steadier than I expected. Since I'm clearly not valued for my legal expertise, and apparently don't fit into this family's vision of the future, I'm going to find a place where my talents are actually appreciated. My father's face darkened like a thundercloud, and my mother instinctively reached for the delicate pendant at her throat, her eyes glistening with tears that threatened to spill over. Alexandra, she pleaded softly, please don't make hasty decisions. Let's sit down and discuss this rationally. But I shook my head firmly, feeling a strange sense of clarity cutting through the emotional storm inside me. There's nothing left to discuss. You've all made your positions painfully clear, I replied, disconnecting my phone from its charger with a sharp tug. My father's jaw clenched visibly as he stepped closer, his presence filling the room, with tension so thick I could almost taste it. Don't be absurd, Alexandra, he said, his tone razor sharp and dismissive. This is your home. What exactly is your plan? Where will you go? And for what purpose? To make some dramatic statement that will accomplish nothing? I met his gaze directly, refusing to be intimidated, drawing strength from the anger burning in my chest. Yes, Dad, I confirmed with newfound conviction. To make it crystal clear that I deserve more than being shoved aside for someone who's never had to prove himself. You made it abundantly obvious last night that there's no place for me in your legal department, so I'll find a firm that recognizes and values what I bring to the table in this digital age. Nathan let out a derisive laugh, shaking his head with theatrical disbelief. You're blowing this completely out of proportion, Alex, he said, crossing his arms over his chest. You're having a full-on meltdown just because Dad isn't handing you the executive title you think you deserve. His condescending tone was the final straw, igniting my fury to a breaking point. This isn't a meltdown, Nathan. I fired back, my voice vibrating with intensity. This is me taking control of my career and my life, a concept you've never had to understand because everything from your law school admission to your corner office has been handed to you on a silver platter. My father raised his hand sharply, commanding silence from both of us. That's enough, he declared with authoritative finality. Alexandra, this conversation is over. You're not leaving. Your place is here with your family, regardless of professional disagreements. I shook my head decisively, grabbing my carry-on with one hand and slinging my laptop bag over my shoulder. No, Dad. My place is somewhere my expertise in digital law is valued, and it's painfully obvious that isn't here. I walked past them with determined strides, my wheeled carry-on gliding silently across the polished floors as I made my way down the floating staircase. My mother hurried after me, her footsteps quick and anxious. Alexandra, please reconsider, she begged, her voice breaking with emotion. We can work through this together as a family. I paused at the bottom of the stairs and turned to face her, this brilliant woman, who had once argued precedent-setting cases before surrendering her ambitions to support my father's career. Mom, I said with genuine tenderness, I love you deeply. But I can't keep living in this fantasy that things will somehow change if I just wait long enough. They won't. Not unless I force the change myself. My father stood at the top of the stairs, watching with stony silence, his expression impenetrable. Nathan leaned casually against the glass railing, scrolling through his phone, as if my life-altering decision wasn't even worth his full attention. I unlocked the front door with my fingerprint and turned back one final time. When you're ready to value me as a legal professional with unique expertise rather than just a daughter who should settle for less, you know how to reach me, I said, my voice quiet but resolute. Then I stepped outside, the cool Silicon Valley morning air washing over my face, as the door closed behind me with a soft pneumatic hiss. For the first time in my adult life, I felt the exhilarating rush of true independence. I didn't look back as I walked away from that house. My eyes were fixed firmly forward, focused on my future. Within days, I had secured an interview at Winters and Associates, one of the most progressive law firms in San Francisco, known for their groundbreaking work in digital privacy law. They didn't care about my family name. All they wanted to see was my understanding of technology law and my passion for justice. When I walked through their sleek glass doors, I wasn't Victor Quinn's daughter. I was Alexandra Quinn, Stanford Law graduate with specialized knowledge in digital forensics and data privacy. The weight of my family name seemed to evaporate in that modern, open-concept office space. By the end of the week, they offered me a position on their litigation team, and for the first time in my professional life, I felt a profound sense of belonging based solely on what I could contribute, not whose bloodline I carried. The work was intellectually demanding but deeply fulfilling, and I flourished in an environment where my ideas were evaluated on their merits rather than measured against family expectations. My new boss, a brilliant and forward-thinking woman named Olivia Winters, recognized my potential immediately. She valued my unique perspective on digital evidence collection and encouraged me to lead projects that matched my expertise. This approach to metadata analysis is exactly what we've been missing, she told me after I presented my strategy for a challenging privacy case. Your technical background gives us an edge that most legal teams don't have. Within 3 months, I was handling complex cases involving tech giants and their data practices, earning genuine respect from colleagues who had no idea of my family connections. I was building my own reputation, forging my own path. It wasn't the career trajectory I had imagined growing up in my father's shadow, but it was authentically mine, and that independence filled me with a sense of purpose I'd never known before. As much as I was excelling professionally, the nights in my new condominium were sometimes difficult. Severing ties with my family left a void that professional success couldn't completely fill, no matter how justified my decision had been. There were moments, particularly quiet ones, like sitting alone on my balcony watching the city lights after a 14-hour workday, when the emotional toll would crash over me like a wave. I missed my mother's understated wisdom, even if she had never publicly defended my ambitions. I even found myself missing Nathan's insufferable energy around the house, as maddening as his entitled attitude had been. But what cut deepest was knowing that my father had let me walk away without a single call or message, as if my absence barely registered in his carefully ordered world. 6 months flew by as I threw myself completely into my work at Winters and Associates. The cases were intellectually demanding, frequently keeping me at my standing desk until the office lights automatically dimmed at midnight. But I thrived on the challenges and the adrenaline. With each successful outcome, my professional confidence soared. I wasn't merely a lawyer anymore. I had become a digital legal strategist that even tech executives approached with respect and sometimes trepidation. Olivia began entrusting me with increasingly complex cases involving data breaches and algorithmic bias, and my reputation quickly grew beyond the firm. Tech blogs started mentioning my name in articles about privacy litigation, and legal podcasts requested interviews about my innovative approach to digital evidence. My growth extended beyond my career. I was evolving personally too. I learned to trust my instincts without seeking external validation, to make bold decisions without calculating whether they would earn my father's approval or fit neatly into the Quinn family narrative. Every successful motion I filed, every favorable settlement I negotiated felt like tangible proof that I was so much more than my family had ever acknowledged. I wasn't just Victor Quinn's daughter anymore. I was Alexandra Quinn, a rising legal mind who was reshaping how the courts approach technology cases. One Wednesday afternoon, Olivia messaged me to come to her office immediately. Her space was contemporary yet comfortable, all clean lines and sustainable materials, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay, a perfect reflection of her forward-thinking yet grounded approach. She gestured for me to take a seat in one of her ergonomic chairs and turned away from her multiple monitors to give me her full attention, her intelligent eyes studying me with unusual intensity. "Alexandra," she began, her tone deliberately measured, "I have a case that I believe you're uniquely qualified to handle. It's high profile, extraordinarily complex, and it's going to thrust you into the national spotlight in the tech law community." I nodded, feeling a flutter of excitement and curiosity in my chest. "I'm listening. What's the case?" I asked eagerly, shifting forward in my seat. She tapped her tablet screen, hesitating momentarily before meeting my eyes again. "We've been approached to represent a coalition of users in a class action lawsuit against Quantum Tech for systematic privacy violations and misuse of biometric data. The evidence suggests they've been covertly collecting and selling user data in direct violation of consent agreements and privacy laws. The potential damages are in the billions, and every tech publication will be covering this." She paused, watching my reaction with careful scrutiny. The revelation hit me with physical force. My stomach clenched painfully, and for a moment, I felt like I couldn't breathe properly. The room seemed to spin slightly, as the implications crashed over me in waves. "You want me to lead a case against my father's company, against the legal department he runs?" I finally managed to say, my voice remarkably controlled despite the emotional earthquake happening inside me. Olivia nodded once, her expression compassionate but unwavering. "I know this crosses personal and professional boundaries, Alexandra. But that's precisely why I believe you're the right attorney to lead this. You understand Quantum Tech's internal legal procedures. You know exactly how their data architecture works. And you're the most knowledgeable privacy attorney we have. If anyone can successfully hold them accountable, it's you." I inhaled deeply, trying to center myself as I processed the monumental request she was making. Olivia, I said deliberately, you do understand what this could mean for me on every level? This isn't just another case on my docket. This is directly challenging my father and everything he's built his career protecting. She leaned forward, her gaze intensifying with conviction. I understand completely, she said with quiet firmness. But this is also your opportunity to demonstrate what true legal ethics look like. To challenge a company that's violating people's fundamental privacy rights. And yes, to prove to everyone, including yourself, that your principles and abilities stand on their own. Think about it, Alexandra. This case could define not just your career, but potentially reshape privacy law for the digital age. I sank back in my chair, feeling the immense weight of her proposal pressing down on me like a physical force. This is overwhelming, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Olivia nodded, her expression softening with genuine understanding. I don't expect an immediate answer. This is an enormous decision with personal ramifications I can't fully comprehend. I met her gaze, feeling a surge of gratitude for her respect of my position. Would it be possible for me to have until tomorrow to consider this? I asked, struggling to keep my voice professional. I need to think through all the implications, not just for my career but for... I stopped abruptly, unable to articulate the complex web of family relationships and personal ethics at stake. Take whatever time you need, Olivia assured me, her voice warm but resolute. But we'll need to move quickly if we take this on. The discovery period will be critical, and we want you leading the team from day one. Let me know your decision by Friday morning at the latest. That night, sleep evaded me completely. I lay in bed, staring at the recessed lighting in my ceiling, my mind racing through potential consequences like a computer running multiple simulations simultaneously. Taking on quantum tech meant directly confronting my father, the man who had dismissed my capabilities, and handed a leadership role to Nathan without hesitation. It also meant publicly challenging my family's tech empire, a name that had opened countless doors for me throughout my life, even as it simultaneously restricted my options. But it also represented the ultimate opportunity to prove definitively that I could stand on my professional merits alone, even if it meant incinerating any possibility of family reconciliation. For 48 tense hours, I oscillated between perspectives, meticulously analyzing every potential outcome. I recalled my father's clinical dismissal of my achievements, my mother's resigned acceptance of inequity despite her own abandoned legal career, and Nathan's infuriating sense of unearned privilege. Yet I also couldn't ignore the chance this presented to show the entire tech legal community, that I was so much more than just Victor Quinn's daughter. By the evening of the second day, my internal deliberation reached its conclusion. I walked into Olivia's office the next morning with determined strides, my posture confident and my voice unwavering. I'm taking the case, I stated decisively. Her face brightened with a mixture of approval and respect. I knew you would make the right choice, she said with a knowing smile. Let's get started immediately. The day of the first discovery hearing arrived with an almost electric tension in the air. As I entered the modernist conference room at the federal courthouse, I gripped my leather portfolio tightly, my stiletto heels striking the marble floor, with purposeful rhythm that matched my racing heartbeat. The lead plaintiff walked beside me, their trust in my strategy evident, but my mind was fixated on the inevitable confrontation I knew awaited me. As we approached the large conference table where the preliminary disclosure meeting would take place, I saw them, my father and Nathan sitting at the opposing side, their attention focused on their tablets until they sensed our approach. The moment our eyes connected, I could physically feel the shock reverberating through the room like a sonic boom. My father's jaw visibly tightened, his eyes narrowing, as recognition and disbelief washed across his usually controlled features. Nathan's mouth dropped open slightly before he hastily rearranged his expression into a practiced smirk, though I could clearly detect the anxiety flickering behind his eyes. I placed my portfolio deliberately on the table and met their stares directly, refusing to show a single sign of hesitation. I wasn't here as a daughter seeking validation, or a sister proving a point. I was here as lead counsel for the plaintiffs, and neither their surprise nor their silent judgment would derail my focus. For the briefest moment, something resembling respect flashed across my father's expression, but he quickly restored his professional mask, leaning toward Nathan to whisper something I couldn't hear. I didn't waste energy wondering what he said. My mind was locked on the digital evidence we were about to present. As the proceedings commenced, I inhabited my role with complete confidence. Every motion filed, every technical argument presented, every piece of digital evidence I introduced was executed with meticulous precision. I maintained an even, authoritative tone, my demeanor thoroughly professional, my concentration entirely devoted to exposing quantum tech's systematic privacy violations. When the discovery judge addressed me regarding our forensic methodology, I responded with measured expertise, never faltering despite feeling my father's intense scrutiny. In that conference room, I wasn't Alexandra, the daughter or sister, I was Alexandra Quinn, attorney for the plaintiffs, digital evidence specialist, and I fully intended to hold this tech giant accountable. Even when Nathan stumbled through his technical explanations, clearly out of his depth when discussing the company's data architecture and privacy protocols, I maintained my professional composure. I addressed his arguments with clinical precision, treating him exactly as I would any opposing counsel, with professional courtesy, but absolutely no mercy. Each time he mischaracterized the metadata evidence or attempted to obscure the user consent issues, I systematically dismantled his claims, supporting every counterargument with irrefutable technical documentation and relevant case precedent. My father remained silent throughout most of the proceedings, his expression carefully guarded, but I could sense his analytical mind processing every detail of my presentation. His opinion no longer mattered to me. I wasn't there seeking his approval or recognition. I was there to expose corporate malfeasance and protect user privacy rights, and I was executing my responsibility flawlessly. After several discovery sessions, it became increasingly evident to everyone involved, especially to my father and Nathan, that I was commanding the case with devastating effectiveness. Every technical argument Nathan presented collapsed when faced with my detailed forensic evidence. His lack of genuine understanding of digital privacy law was glaringly apparent, and my methodical preparation left him visibly flustered, desperately searching for responses he simply didn't possess. My father attempted to intervene strategically a couple of times, but even his considerable legal experience couldn't repair the damage Nathan's weak arguments had inflicted on their position. The momentum was shifting dramatically toward our side, and everyone in the conference room could sense it with each passing hour. By the fourth discovery session, Quantum Tech's legal team initiated settlement discussions. I could read the complex mixture of frustration and grudging respect etched into my father's expression as their lead counsel approached Olivia with preliminary terms. After several rounds of intense negotiation, we secured a resolution that overwhelmingly favored our clients, including unprecedented transparency requirements and substantial compensation. As the settlement documents were being finalized digitally, I caught my father observing me intently from across the room. His expression revealed a man wrestling with conflicting emotions, professional defeat intermingled with what appeared to be personal regret. Nathan, conversely, avoided any eye contact whatsoever, staring fixedly at his tablet screen like someone desperately trying to disappear. I maintained my professional composure, saying nothing to either of them. My objective had been accomplished, and I had demonstrated exactly what I had set out to prove about my capabilities. Typically, after concluding a major case, I would remain behind to finalize details with clients and exchange professional courtesies with opposing counsel, a small but meaningful ritual of professional respect I maintained regardless of how adversarial proceedings had been. But this time, that opportunity never materialized. My father and Nathan had already collected their devices and documents and exited the room without so much as a nod in my direction, no professional acknowledgement, no congratulatory gesture, not even a terse, impressive work. The complete absence of recognition pierced deeper than I wanted to acknowledge. Despite everything that had transpired between us, some part of me had secretly hoped for some small indication that they recognized my professional accomplishment, some acknowledgement that they respected what I had achieved. Instead, they departed in silent retreat, leaving me standing there, with an unexpected hollowness spreading beneath my professional triumph. I took a steadying breath, pushed the disappointment aside, and redirected my focus to our clients. We had secured a landmark settlement. That achievement was what truly mattered. That evening, returning to the firm, my colleagues erupted into spontaneous applause as I walked through the glass doors. Olivia was the first to approach, greeting me with a warm hug and raising a glass of champagne with evident pride. "Absolutely brilliant work, Alexandra," she declared, her voice carrying across the open office space. "Your handling of the technical evidence was nothing short of masterful. This settlement is groundbreaking for privacy law, and your clients couldn't possibly have had a more effective advocate." The team had organized an impromptu celebration in the collaborative workspace, with champagne flowing and an impressive spread of artisanal appetizers. The lead plaintiff representative made a special appearance to express their appreciation, grasping my hand with genuine emotion. "What you accomplished today changes everything, Alexandra," they said earnestly. "We couldn't have exposed these violations without your expertise. You've helped protect millions of users." For the first time since the settlement was finalized, I allowed myself to truly smile. Surrounded by colleagues who genuinely valued my unique combination of legal acumen and technical knowledge, I experienced a profound sense of professional validation that no acknowledgement from my father or Nathan could have provided. This victory belonged entirely to me, built on my own merits. Later that night, alone in my high-rise condominium, the shimmer of Silicon Valley's tech campuses glowed through the floor-to-ceiling windows as I sat on my minimalist sofa with a glass of Cabernet. The professional adrenaline had finally subsided, leaving room for more personal reflections to resurface. I mentally replayed key moments from the proceedings, my father's expression tightening each time I introduced damning metadata evidence, the way Nathan couldn't meet my eyes when his technical arguments collapsed. I had anticipated anger, defensiveness, perhaps even accusations of betrayal, but somehow the absolute silence they left in their wake felt more difficult to process. For as long as I could remember, I had yearned for my father's professional respect, for him to recognize that I deserved a place in the legal world he navigated so competently. And now, after definitively demonstrating my capabilities by defeating them in a high-stakes case, I found myself uncertain about what I had actually accomplished in personal terms. Had they finally recognized me as a formidable attorney in my own right, or did they merely see me as a painful reminder of their own misjudgments? The questions circled endlessly in my mind, without resolution, as I gazed out at the twinkling lights of the tech companies dotting the Bay Area landscape, wondering if the familial bonds I had severed could ever genuinely be restored, or if they should be. The next morning, as I strode into the open concept office of Winters and Associates, the familiar hum of productivity surrounded me, phones ringing, keyboards clicking, animated discussions about case strategy filtering through the space. I'd barely set down my laptop when Olivia approached, her expression a mixture of surprise and curiosity. "Alexandra," she said, her voice measured yet warm, "your father is here. He's waiting in your office." The unexpected news hit me like an electric shock, stopping me mid-motion. "My father?" I asked, struggling to maintain a neutral expression despite the sudden flutter of anxiety in my chest. Olivia nodded, studying my reaction carefully. "He arrived about half an hour ago, said he needed to speak with you privately. I've cleared your morning calendar and diverted your calls to the team. Take whatever time you need." I thanked her with a nod, my mind already racing through dozens of possible scenarios as I walked deliberately down the hallway. When I opened my office door, there he was, Victor Quinn, the formidable legal director of Quantum Tech, sitting ramrod straight in the Eames chair opposite my desk, his tablet neatly placed beside him. He looked up as I entered, his expression carefully composed, though I detected something unfamiliar in his eyes. Was it uncertainty? Respect? "Alexandra," he said simply, his voice noticeably quieter than his usual authoritative tone. I closed the door behind me, a surge of conflicting emotions threatening my professional demeanor. Dad, I replied evenly, maintaining my composure. This is unexpected. What brings you here? He rose to his feet with deliberate dignity, smoothing his impeccably tailored suit as if buying time to organize his thoughts. I came to speak with you directly, he said, his tone measured yet tinged with an unfamiliar vulnerability, to express some things that should have been acknowledged long before now. I moved to my desk, placing my laptop down with calculated precision, creating a momentary buffer to collect myself. I'm listening, I stated, crossing my arms protectively. He paused, glancing briefly at the San Francisco skyline visible through my window before meeting my gaze directly. Your handling of that privacy case was nothing short of brilliant, Alexandra, he began, his voice softening with genuine admiration. I've worked with elite attorneys for over 30 years, some of the most renowned legal minds in Silicon Valley, and what you demonstrated in those proceedings. It was exceptional. Your command of the technical evidence, your strategic approach, your unwavering professionalism, you established beyond question who the superior attorney was. His unexpected praise caught me off guard, but I maintained my composed expression, waiting cautiously for him to continue. I've built my entire career on the belief that corporate leadership follows traditional patterns. He continued, visible regret now evident in his features, that male executives should naturally succeed other male executives. I convinced myself I was doing the right thing by grooming Nathan, despite recognizing his limitations and lack of genuine interest in the nuances of legal strategy. He ran his hand through his silver hair in a rare gesture of unguarded frustration. But I see now with complete clarity how wrong I've been. You've worked with extraordinary dedication, Alexandra. You've earned every achievement through genuine merit, and I fail to acknowledge that reality. I failed you as both a father and a professional mentor. I blinked rapidly, struggling to process this sudden reversal from the man who had dismissed my ambitions for years, who had told me to accept a less demanding career path that didn't align with my capabilities or passions. Why this sudden realization? I finally asked, my voice controlled but cautious. Why are you telling me this now, after everything that's transpired between us? He met my questioning gaze directly, his blue eyes reflecting a sincerity I'd rarely witnessed in our professional interactions. Because I witnessed firsthand what you're truly capable of, he stated with surprising directness, and I've been forced to confront my own blindness. Nathan isn't equipped for leadership, despite all the advantages I've given him. But you've demonstrated beyond any doubt that you possess not just the technical knowledge, but the strategic vision to lead in this new digital landscape. He moved closer, his tone taking on an unexpected note of earnestness. Alexandra, I'm asking you to consider returning to quantum tech, to assume leadership of a new digital ethics and privacy division we're establishing. The company needs your expertise. I need your perspective. His words hung in the air between us, and for several moments, I couldn't formulate a response. I had fought so long for this kind of recognition, imagined countless times hearing him acknowledge my capabilities. But now that the moment had actually arrived, I found myself uncertain about what I truly wanted. What about Nathan? I asked eventually, my practical side emerging. Where does he fit in this restructuring? My father's expression tightened slightly as he nodded with resignation. Nathan will remain with the company, but in a position better aligned with his actual strengths in client relations. This isn't about him anymore, Alexandra. It's about recognizing your rightful place and the unique value you bring to Quantum Tech's future. I inhaled deeply, allowing myself time to process his unexpected proposal. I appreciate your candor, but I need time to consider this carefully. I finally responded, my voice calm but resolute. This isn't a decision I can make impulsively. There's considerable history between us, and I need to evaluate what's truly best for my career and my principles. My father nodded, his expression showing genuine understanding. Of course, he acknowledged. Take all the time you need for proper consideration. I'm not expecting an immediate answer. I simply needed to communicate these things directly to you. He moved toward the door, but paused before leaving, turning back to face me once more. Alexandra, he said, his voice noticeably gentler. I realize I've rarely expressed this, perhaps never adequately, but I am genuinely proud of you. Watching you systematically dismantle our position with such technical precision and ethical clarity. You've surpassed anything I've accomplished in my career, exceeded anything I could have imagined possible. His unexpected words landed with emotional force I hadn't anticipated, momentarily leaving me speechless. He offered a tentative, almost humble smile before turning and walking out, leaving me alone with the reverberations of our conversation. As I sat at my desk, his words echoed persistently in my thoughts. You've surpassed anything I've accomplished. Throughout my entire career, I had fought to prove my worth to him, to demonstrate that I was more than just Victor Quinn's daughter, that I was a formidable legal mind deserving of professional respect in my own right. Now, hearing those words of validation, I felt a powerful surge of well-earned pride wash over me. This validation was no longer about winning his approval. I was proud of myself for maintaining my principles, for building success on my own terms, and for demonstrating to the entire tech legal community and to my father exactly what I was capable of achieving. Now, it's late at night, and I'm lying in my bed, staring at the recessed lighting in my ceiling, my mind racing through every possible future scenario. My father's offer to lead a new digital ethics and privacy division is everything I've worked toward professionally, everything I believed I wanted. But accepting would mean returning to an environment where I was once dismissed and undervalued, where I'd need to navigate the complicated terrain of past wounds and rebuild trust. It would mean collaborating with Nathan, fully aware of how little he appreciates the principles and responsibilities we would both represent at Quantum Tech. And yet, remaining at Winters and Associates comes with its own set of challenges. This firm has nurtured my growth in ways I never anticipated, allowing me to develop both professionally and personally. Olivia has been the mentor I always needed but never had. But it's not my family's legacy. It's not Quantum Tech, the company whose legal direction I once dreamed of guiding since I first understood what my father did. If I return, I'd have the unprecedented opportunity to reshape that legacy according to my own vision and ethical standards, to demonstrate that the Quinn name belongs to me just as legitimately as to any other family member. I could potentially transform how tech companies approach user privacy from the inside. I haven't reached a decision yet. The choice feels overwhelming in its complexity, and the weight of it keeps me wide awake despite the late hour. But perhaps you can offer some perspective. What would you do if you were in my position? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely value hearing your perspective on this crossroads.